Cold email is dead. Well, at least that's what everyone tells you. But what if I told you that there was a new way to do cold email? One that doesn't actually rub people up the wrong way, and one that creates a massive amount of conversations with your ICP that you would otherwise never have got. In fact, here's a campaign we ran between July 26th and the 14th of October 2025. And just look at the results. In this video, I'm going to be going through the exact strategies we used to generate 188 opportunities in 3 months and tell you exactly how you can do the same. I've also created a document that includes all of our winning cold email scripts. So if you'd like to grab a copy of that, click the link in the description, punch in your email address, and you'll get instant access. If you don't know who I am, my name is Saeed Chowdhury. I'm the founder here at SRC Growth Partner, an advertising firm that helps B2B and professional services firms scale their high-ticket, high-value offers through paid advertising. We take a holistic approach to growth, from cold to close, from cold to cash in the bank. We come in, we build an advertising engine from end to end, run it for our clients to help them scale. But before I get into the video, if you want to check out what we do in a little bit more detail, I have my website linked in the description below, so feel free to click it, watch the video on the landing page to get a better feel of what we actually do, and then you can go from there. Let's not waste any more time though, let's just jump into it. Okay, so in order to understand the strategy, you really need to understand the two types of approaches available for you when doing cold email, right? And the first approach is something that is more common and something that you would most likely be more aware of, and that is what we call the direct method. Right? And then the second approach is what we call the indirect method, something that you may not be as aware of, right? So what is the difference between a direct method and an indirect method? Well, the direct method is primarily a value proposition, straight email to someone selling them on your service, right? And what we found over the last 5 to 7 years is that cold email is becoming less and less effective as it used to be. Gone are the days of sending 100 emails and getting 10 booked meetings with this method. What's happening now is that you're getting far fewer positive responses and actual booked meetings by going this way because the market is so saturated and sophisticated, right? So you've got a sophisticated market who are getting really annoyed with all these emails coming into their inbox and just sending them to spam. And you've got a saturated market. In other words, one that is filled with high volume lead gen agencies, as well as other businesses and companies sending out high volume emails to lists or specific ICPs that they've broken down, and really just rubbing people up the wrong way. They see it, goes straight into the spam folder, or if it's not in the spam folder, it gets deleted. It doesn't even get read. And what happens is the market is now becoming more and more annoyed when they get a cold email come into their inbox. And so how do we navigate the new landscape of cold email? One where you don't want to be rubbing people up the wrong way, one that is allowing you to be able to actually start conversations without the expectation of making someone feel like they're going to be sold to, right? And that's where the indirect method comes in. And that's what we've been really focusing on with our clients, ourselves, over the last 6 to 9 months, really generating opportunities through this new strategy, right? And the reason why I want to touch on indirect, before I go into the exact strategy, I want to talk to you about what the indirect method actually entails. And it simply entails a value-driven approach, right? Value first with no expectation of something in return, right? This is the only way you're going to be getting calls and book calls at the volume we did with the amount of contacts that you're contacting, right? We sent out to set 3,777 contacts and we got 188 positive responses / opportunities. What does that exactly mean? Well, it means that our response rate, reply rate, and actual positive response rates are far higher than what you would typically see when you go with the direct method. Typically, with a direct method nowadays, you're going to see a 0.5% response rate. Our strategy got us 4.8%. So you can see the stark difference. And what would 188 conversations, with your ideal customer profile do for your business over a 3-month period, right? And the key thing you need to be looking at with this is that not every single conversation will turn into a sale immediately, but you really want to be mechanizing what you're already doing, especially in the consulting B2B professional services spaces. What typically is the case is that most businesses grow through referrals, word of mouth, and networking, right? And what we're doing with the indirect method is we're leveraging what you would otherwise do with networking, going to these events, and essentially mechanizing that and putting that on an online channel, right? So you're able to have a conversation with someone, build a relationship, start with value first, let them know you even exist, have a conversation, and then have a sales process in the back end to transition them into the close, right? And it's really important to have a structured process here in the back end so that you're not having conversations for the sake of conversations, right? And that's what networking can often be. It can often be something where you're having a conversation, you don't know what, you take someone's business card, you might get their LinkedIn, and then who knows, maybe down the line, you're able to have a business relationship. Maybe there's an opportunity, maybe there isn't, but you're growing your network and increasing the likelihood of something coming through. And that's why the indirect method works so well. It's because you're essentially doing the same thing you would do in networking, but you bring it into a online direct conversation with the idea of building a relationship. So you build relationships as well as actually having a sales process in the back end, right? So that's the key differentiator here. Is the difference is the amount of conversations you can have and how much pipeline you can build with that. Because with a 0.5% response rate, what that means is you really need to get the volume that you would want with 188 calls. So 188 here. If you wanted 188 calls, you'd have to send more than 30,000 emails. And that's difficult enough as it is, building out a list of 30,000 ideal prospects that you can actually send high volume to. And you're going to upset people along the way. And so with this, we sent it out to 3,777. So that is the clear difference there, in that you can actually book far more meetings and conversations with people with far less people in your total addressable market. And that's why you really need to be leveraging this new strategy, right? Now, in order for us to understand exactly what this entails, the direct method, so let's bring this up again, direct, indirect. So what does it take to get a direct cold email to even be looked at? Well, the first thing is a cold traffic optimized offer, right? And if you've watched some of my other videos, you'll know what exactly that is. But essentially, it is an offer that is specifically designed to get cold markets, people who do not know you, people who have never heard of you, onto a call and into a sales conversation, right? It's typically something that has a very low risk for them to be able to respond, but also an opportunity for you to just bring them in and give them a specific offer and then upsell them in the back end, right? Very, very important when working with cold markets is that you actually have an optimized funnel to be able to do that and a clear sales process in the back end so that you are able to actually convert more deals and increase the lifetime value of a client that sticks around with you. So that's key for any kind of direct method, right? And that in itself is tough for most organizations. They're not quite sure what a cold traffic optimized offer is. It's not a service, it's much more of a direct offer. For example, buy one, get one free is an offer, or a free assessment or a free audit. These are types of offers. What's tough in the professional services and consulting spaces is it's not quite as easy to create a cold traffic optimized offer initially, unless it's an audit or an assessment, because more often than not, you have to actually have dialogue with the lead, the prospect, to be able to establish what the actual pain points are and what you can actually consult with. And that's why it's so important when you've got an offer that is more in the consulting realms to be using the indirect method. So typically with consulting, a lot of the offers are designed based off of the conversations you have with your lead or prospect, and you kind of figure it out based off of what they tell you, right? And see if you can actually help them. And so what's really important is understanding that with consulting and advisory and that type of service, it's more about volume of how many more conversations you can have to understand how many of those conversations actually are qualified for your service. And so what exactly is the indirect method? What are the typical ways that you can bring someone onto a call with a value-driven approach that isn't directly a sales call? And the first one is one that we have found has worked incredibly well for us and our clients. And that is the podcast method, right? And the podcast method is quite simple. Get someone onto a podcast that you've created with this intention to have a great conversation with them, an interesting conversation with them, one that you can record and one that you can also clip up and then provide highlight clips to them as a thank you for being on the show, right? For this reason, why would you do something like that? Well, what they end up having from that conversation is far more valuable to them than just coming onto the conversation and sharing their time, right? Because they leave with clips that they can post on their own social media, that they can leverage as thought leadership content. And you've essentially given them free value by doing so, right? And at the same time, you spent 30 minutes, 45 minutes with them, having a great conversation, learning more about them learning a little bit more about you, and really building a natural relationship, natural rapport with them. What then you can do is have a structured process in the back end to then transition them and let them know, oh, well, these are the types of services we do. Would you be interested in learning a little bit more about us, right? And typically, if someone has had a great conversation, is interested and has an actual pain point, they'll actually go, yeah, let's learn a little bit more about you. I like you. I know you now. I trust you a little bit more. Let me learn a little bit about you, and then we can go from there. And then you have the conversation. You take the dialogue over through the sales process. Very, very key. Secondly, we have the white paper method, right? And white paper, you may have seen it, you may have been on the receiving end of it, is essentially doing a research report and inviting someone on to assist with that research report. The value in return of them being on the report is that you give them the opportunity to either be anonymous or named in the report for marketing purposes. They also get an advanced copy of the report so that they're able to review it, get additional insights of that. Typically, you would have conversations with multiple people. And so then the report will be condensed through the insights of a specific niche or sector and giving key insights on that. So very common in consulting, white papers are. And so it's really important to be able to go, okay, well, this is clearly a research paper. It's also going to be an asset for the business, right? Just like the podcast is going to be an asset for the business, as well as you're giving a value back to your lead or prospect. Third is a webinar, which is super effective. So with the webinar, it's pretty self-explanatory. You invite them onto a webinar specifically on the pains or problems or anything that you're specifically seeing within that sector that you can actually provide value to. And it's just an education-based format with a presentation. You invite people on and have a conversation. And this is the round table method. And the roundtable is essentially inviting a group of people onto one specific call. So it might be 3, 4, 5, and one person hosting, essentially creating another podcast, but with a number of guests, creating a networking opportunity with everyone sharing their insights. Super effective. A lot of people like doing this as well, primarily because it's an opportunity for them to also rub shoulders with other people that are in the industry and share their thoughts. Another networking kind of opportunity. And based off of that conversation, you also grow, people learn a little bit more about you, and then you can then transition them into a sales conversation if they're interested. So these are some of the strategies that you can use and implement to be able to reach out and utilize cold email to be able to generate that. And I want to tell you, we generated 188 opportunities through this, the podcast method. That's the exact strategy. Now, let me jump into the Instantly account where I can show you the actual numbers involved with our strategy. So breaking it down, so what you see here is 3,776 sequences started. Then you've got a 7.6% reply rate, which is typically you would be looking at 1 to 2% if you're going direct method. And then you've got a 65.5% positive reply rate, which is absolutely insane. So 188 people have turned around and said, yes, I'm interested in the opportunity, right? And I'm just going to go down here and show you what this entails. So we test, and we have tested on a number of different campaigns heavily to be able to get to this point where we go, okay, what exactly is working in this script, what we need to change and what we don't need to change, right? So what you'll see here is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. So amongst that testing, and the reason why it's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is primarily because of the actual lead list. So there's only 3,776. The more contacts you would have in your list, the higher you want to be testing to be able to ensure that the variations are correct. And what you'll see is we tested to a certain level, and the first 4 here, and then the final one here, actually were not getting the responses we were looking for. And there was something about the 3 we chose here that actually started getting responses. So what we did was, after 135 emails sent in the first 4, we turned the campaigns off. We got some responses here, so we kept this on for another 115. And what we found was this was not as effective as EFG. So by doing so, we turned off the variations of the scripts that weren't actually as effective as the others, and we kept the ones that were what we call winning campaigns running. And what you'll see here is that's where the results are coming from. We have a 3-step process. So the 3 steps of follow-ups. So you got the first follow-up that actually generated 43 positive responses. And then you've got the final step, which actually generated 31. So naturally, you're seeing a decrease in the number of actual responses per step of the follow-up, which is pretty common. But what you're seeing is you're still mopping up a lot of opportunities just by having a 3rd step. And we always recommend 3 steps in every kind of campaign that you're running. And what you'll see again is for the period of 27th of July all the way to 14th of October is how long this campaign ran for. And we generated 188 opportunities from that. So that's giving you an idea of that. You're probably wondering, what's the actual scripts? Can I get a hold of that? Yes, absolutely. What I've done is I've put all the winning cold email scripts from this campaign, as well as others that we found have been effective. And what I've done is I've put that into a Google Doc, and I put a link in the description. So if you would like a copy of that and you want instant access, all you got to do is click the link and then plug in your email address, and then you'll get instant access to that document. And then you can start running this yourself and see how effective this can actually be. Hopefully you gained some value from this video. If you're looking for more ways to actually scale and grow your business, I've actually put another video somewhere on this screen, linked it here. So if you watch that video, you might learn a little bit more as well about some of the other strategies that we use and implement for our other clients. And if you're interested in actually having a discussion with me, feel free to click the website in the description below. And then what you can do is watch the video on the landing page, or just book some time at the bottom of the page where we can discuss a little bit more about your business. I can learn a little bit more and see what we would plug into your business to be able to help you scale. Aside from that, if you're enjoying the content, feel free to subscribe, hit the notification bell. That way, anytime I do post content, you're notified and you get the most up-to-date information when it's out. Aside from that, hopefully you've gained some value today. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one.